Hello and welcome to At the Table. This is your host, Kelly Lincoln, and we are here once again on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in New York City at the corner of East 87th and Lexington. That means, of course, I am at Starbucks. Yay! What can I say? What can I say? There's so much to talk about today, and I don't know exactly how to get it started. For one thing, I'm just going to try something here, so forgive me if it sort of like goes off the air for a moment. Boom, and am I still... Yes, I am still on the air. This is awesome. It means I can actually go to notes. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of stuff on a separate program on my MacBook. On my tablet, since I am currently using my tablet to do this, because it's a lot easier than dragging my laptop out for this. On the other hand, when I'm home doing this live, I can simulcast here on Spreaker at the time it's supposed to be broadcast, which is 3 p.m. Pacific time and 6 p.m. Eastern time. And I can also, route it through to netrootsradio.com. So there's so much happening today. There's these days, never a dull moment. Of course, I am here in New York, and we've had a train derail. And, of course, everybody's mad at Amtrak. But they should be mad at the government for not funding Amtrak properly. Here, in fact, Amtrak is shutting down a whole bunch of train routes, like the city of New Orleans is being shut down because gotta take away from everybody so the billionaires can get their little fucking tax cut, and the defense contractors can make a little bit more money when the monies that goes to Amtrak and to the National Endowment and for all the arts supports nationally is like a drop in the bucket to what defense contractors get. And with NEA grants and National Endowment for the Arts and National Endowment for the Humanities, it's not the big cities that reap the benefit of this. The places that reap the benefit of these publicly funded programs are smaller towns and cities in the Midwest, in states like Indiana, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. They are the ones that benefit the most from these programs. Arts and humanities are not just for cities like New York or San Francisco or Miami or Chicago or Los Angeles or Austin, but for everybody in the nation. And it's a shame when our country can't see that. People don't see that because all they are fed is a steady diet of harangue about weird things going on with grants, with NEA grants, but they don't talk about how the NEA helps community theaters in Curtis, Nebraska. Curtis, Nebraska. My grandmother was born in Curtis, and they are best known for their Easter pageant. And I would wager that some of that funding for the pageant comes from the National Endowment for the Arts. And before you get your knickers in a twist about funding a religious activity, it's just because of the way the demographics are in the city. But when my great-grandparents and grandmother and her brother left Curtis, all the Jews in Curtis, Nebraska left along with it. And to this day, it's a very non-existent Jewish population. That's just the way it is. My great-grandfather ran the general store in Curtis. He was also the postmaster. So he was, and he and the family on Sundays would play musical churches. My grandmother was educated in a Catholic school because that is how you got a girl, a young woman in that time frame, got a good education. My grandmother was still Jewish, didn't try and convert her or anything. She just went to a Catholic girls' school for her education. And so, there's other, you know, I don't know how many of you really are out there listening, but I hope that you enjoy this and you pass this along, that in your community, you need to fight to maintain the National Endowments of the Arts for the arts community in your community. It's just the way it goes. Arts and humanities are part and parcel of civilization. And without it, we are not a civilized people. So that's my little rant on the NEA. I'll probably come back to it later. And you're listening, of course, to At the Table here on netrootsradio.com. So when, and then, I want to make this, I so desire for this show to be what its original intent was, be a show about theater and the performing arts, but it's veered heavily into politics, and that's because really politics is theater. At this point, we can decide what type of theater is it. Grand tragedy, the Greek tragedy it's not Shakespeare. It could be considered farce. I don't know. Melodrama, American melodrama. It could even be considered Dada theater because part and parcel of Dada theater as opposed to Dada art is that the set was destroyed. We can consider what's going on. Just Dada as a joke in poor taste. The theater of the absurd, that too. But whose absurdity is it? Is it Ionesco's? Who? So many choices to choose from when it comes to the theater to absurdism. Now, let's go on my weekend review before I go any farther onto this, because that's how I like to start. Tell you what type of week I had. I had a really great week, except for the fact that my allergies are in full bloom. The fatigue factor for my brain injury was not just blooming. It was like blooming. It was like growing like ivy up a wall. And I've talked about this a lot. And with brain injury, especially with mine, there's so many differing effects of it that no two injuries are alike. I have issues with brain fatigue and memory. And on the 24th, I'm taking part in a scene night celebrating Tennessee Williams. And I have been working on a piece from a rarely performed play called The Gnädiges Fräulein. And I have the first quarter of it, I'd say, memorized. And that's like the first half page, first portion of it. And when I went to work on it today, I realized that I don't go past that. I don't move on to the second page and work on the second page. It's not that long a monologue. It's the introductory monologue. But for me to get stuck on that first page, it's exactly what happened immediately after my TBI, when I would continually read one sentence over and over and over again because I could not remember reading it. And that can be pretty frightening and devastating and disheartening for somebody who's pursuing an acting career. And I've had to make accommodations for that. And fortunately for me, for this scene work, I have the man who is producing this, Roger Simon of the Simon Studio here in New York, understands my situation and what I'm going and what I am experiencing. So he knows full well that I may be going up with the paper in my hand to do this, simply because I may not have the long-term memory, jacked in for this piece, except for the first part of it. So I've doing improvisation, which forces me to focus because I have to remember what part A, part B is, and it gets me out of tests. Keeps my brain active because I've got to be listening all the time. You have to be listening all the time, no matter what you're doing as an actor, even or as a musician, and it's always those new discoveries as an actor or as a musician that are so exciting. And for me, it's even more exciting. So when I'm working on a monologue or in a scene, I find something that is what is called a green umbrella. It's a little security thing, something that you can use as a touchstone. One of the things I always used and helps when I am working on it is to associate my dialogue with movement. What am I doing at this point, at this point, at this point? And so when I get home this evening from work, providing I don't lie down to catch my breath before the midnight show, I will be doing a piece. I'll be starting to associate movement with the words. Fortunately, some of it is built into. Fortunately, some of it is for the first portion, half of the opening piece. It's built into it, so that helps. So I just need to tick off. Here's where I do this. Now this is where I do that, and having to come up with other things to help me work through it is always fun, and it leads me to doing things like table reads. And last night I took part in one that was it was a good script. Character development needed work for everybody. It's a story about a cult that is essentially a cross between the Heaven's Gate cult and the People's Temple, which ended up in the Jonestown murder and massacre. Can't really say suicide about Jonestown because a lot of the people who were found dead at the compound there had been murdered. Not everybody drank the Flavor Aid. And but it's a good script, some good character development. It was an interesting read, interesting title. Hopefully the writer will bring it back after his changes and we get a chance to reread it again, because the fun in this group is that we the actors, the readers, are there to help the screenwriter refine his ideas, his concepts, his characters, his dialogue, what works, what doesn't work, the clarity. And the one thing that always gets me when we're doing the comments on it is the fact that everybody uses the screenplays that get published. Like you can find the network screenplay and Midnight Cowboy, and you'll see all of this exposition in it. Screenplays don't really have them when they're written. What you're looking at is a continuity person's, stage manager's book, which has descriptions of everything. And as an actor, when I see that in a script that's being developed, it always bugs me because they're telling you how you're supposed to respond and this, that, and the other, and your actions, and it's not necessary. Same thing when as a playwright, when you write a play, don't write the stage directions and let the director do it. Let the actor, unless there's something, trust your actors, trust your directors, your scenic design, unless you have an idea for something. Trust the people that are going to be producing your words, producing your work, and that are, respecting your text. In this particular Starbucks, several months ago, there were a couple of guys in here, actors. Oh, wow, there were actors, big time, from the Midwest. I'm going to be a star, and I don't need to memorize. One of the actors doesn't believe in memorizing his lines because, big deal. What's with memorization? I'll just say what, Dude, if you're in my show, you will memorize. I've directed here in New York, and I will, tan your fanny if you disrespect the author's texts. If it's a simple, because the author, the playwright, uses specific words for specific meanings, for specific intent. It's like when you read a book, or even if you read a comic book, or a graphic novel, every word written for those characters have a specific intent. And that's just how it's done. And when you disrespect, the author like that, you're doing a disservice to the other actors who rely on you